Well, hi there. Hi, everybody. How are y'all doing today? Oh, of course, right when I start and I turn toward my desk, the stretchies happen. Oh, there we go. Got those all out. How's everybody doing today? It's a good day. Sun is shining. I'd almost be happier with it raining. If it was just, a little more dark and brooding and cloudy outside. Kind of like the clouds we're going to be trying to paint today. No, not trying. Successfully painting today. Let me turn my mic a little bit so it's not quite so in my way. Yep. And still facing me. Yep. It works. Great. All right. We're getting everything together. Got my coffee. Ready to go. Ah, good stuff. Move that up. Try to align everything a little bit so it all makes a little bit more sense today. There we go. Oh man. What a day. Um, how will we start today? Well, clearly we're gonna be working on clouds today. I suppose we can do a recap though of what we did last week. Last week we worked on water. Um, actually, let me grab a couple things really quick. One sec. I returned. Grab a coffee again. Oh no, what am I going to do with it? I guess I'm going to drink it. All right. So last week I'm kind of doing a series. How you notice? Kind of doing a series on elements and just going through and practicing a variety of things. I kind of got triggered to I've been wanting to work on this for a while just to get practice on doing different elements that you paint and kind of just go around all of the natural things like water, air, earth, fire, all the obvious things, right? So I started a couple weekends ago and we went to the park and brought my paints with, and I just threw together this like rendition of the beach scene that I saw in front of me and made me realize I don't really do a wonderful job of water. I just kind of faked it and it's water-esque, right? But it needed to work. So I thought, hey, let's practice water. And what a better time to do it than when I wanted to start painting elemental type things, right? So I started with these. I believe I did this one first, and it was so wet that everything just spread out and it made it look kind of hairy. So that didn't quite work out well. Then I did this one and it started drying and it went the opposite direction. And I also realized I'm relying too much on cheap paper, so maybe get away from the cheap paper, except for really, really, really scratch things. So I moved over to the biggest sheet of paper, and I broke it into quadrants to experiment, uh, trying to do the same kind of idea, but multiple times in a row, right? To try to see if I can figure out the right process for me. I was using a round brush for that, and it worked mostly. I wasn't super proud of it. It didn't feel real. Like it didn't evoke water to me. It evoked, in some situations, it evoked holes, instead of waves. So I thought, hey, you know, part of me was like, is it the brush? Because the guy was using a particular kind of brush that had like a needle point on the front of it and then was like fat behind it. So he could do like this thin stuff and then blam, hit like a push down on the belly of it and get a nice fat wave out of it. And I was just using a round brush to try to do the same thing, and it probably would have worked with time, practice, and skill. And I want to come back to this method again and see how well it works. Uh, Side note, I did end up getting something to help with that. I found a fairly cheap set of those brushes on Amazon. It's a 3-pack, 3 different sizes. I've got them in front of me here. The largest one is right here. And you can see, focus, focus. Yeah, there we go. You see how it's got kind of like a dagger point, kind of like a stinger. But it will allow me to do like finer points on things. But the belly holds a lot of liquids, so I should be able to do like fine point things longer because it'll hold on to pigment longer. But when I want to press down and get that wave thing, I can press down and you see it spreads out, right? And I've got 3 sizes of that. So it's this large one, and then there's a medium, and then there's a very small one. So when the time comes and we want to play with it again, we can try these brushes and practice with them and see how they go. But they're to the side. And that was $20 on Amazon for the 3-pack. It had absolutely no reviews. So I'm thinking it might be kind of halfway between good and halfway between garbage, but we'll find out when we try it at some point, when we loop back around to water. But we'll try them out then. So I'm going to go ahead and toss this box because I just don't care to keep it. If I need to look it up again, I'll just look it up on Amazon. It's this brand, if that helps. You can Google it or Amazon search it. Weirdly, it said that it was a synthetic brush, and on the box it says horsehair. So, I mean, I don't know which one's true, but we'll go with it. Anywho, beyond this method of doing water, that was Thursday. No, what is today's Monday? It was Monday of last week, I believe, that I did that. And then Thursday, no, I'm sorry. Let me stop lying. This was also Monday. I also tried doing a different water technique where you do reflections. And I wasn't super proud of this larger one, but the small one felt like it worked out really well. But they're both actually fairly good, especially going from this to this is definitely far more effective no matter what. So I like how these came out. But the real winner was Thursday. Thursday we did this. We were practicing like an ocean type scene. And some of them were kind of like, the starter ones were kind of okay. And then I made the decision to switch to Arches paper, which is a much higher quality paper. And that made a world of difference. I am very proud of this. This one came out very, very, very well, very good. I'm quite happy with it. But while I was looking at it and I was trying to decide, what am I going to do today? I'm going to do more water. I was thinking of doing like lakes and rivers, but I think I'll come back to that in the future. I realized that looking up at this, following that person's tutorial video, I did what they said, and I did like a basic hazy sky, but it made me realize that I'm also not really great at clouds. And that is one of the elements is doing air, and it's kind of a segue, right? Because it's water. Clouds are made of water vapor, but it's also up in the sky. So it's kind of the segue from water to air. So I figured that's a good in-between step. And I really desperately need help doing clouds. So that's what we're going to do today is we're going to work on clouds. So yeah, super proud of this one. Definitely want to try this one again at some point to start putting more effort into some other things in it. Maybe like a small coastal thing, a little silhouette of a lighthouse, maybe a little fishing trawler, a little bit more texture in the sky when we can figure out how to do clouds properly, things like that, right? And we'll come back to this and we'll start combining lessons together and we'll do a combination of a few things and make one really nice, comprehensive painting. For now, though, let me move all that to the side. I say as I drop all of it. Put this here. You can go, I don't know, you can go there. And I'm going to put this behind me and I'll put it up later. Uh, also in my Amazon travels, since we discovered Arches was doing so well, I went ahead and got more. I only had one pad of my 9x12 Arches left, so I got one new of that, and it's over there for when I do run out of the normal size. But while I was there on the same Amazon store listing, uh, aside from the 9x12 that I normally use, they had 10x14, and then they had this, which really called out to me because one, it's large. I wanted the ability to be able to use a large sheet and either cut it or tape it to make smaller quadrants or smaller segments to paint in as practice. I don't want to ruin my chances for some things that say this process requires paper that's really thirsty and able to really soak up some water so that it'll stay wet for a long period of time. Everything that I've seen with clouds and everything that I've done so far with water required basing on a wet canvas, right? So I thought if I'm going to do wet on wet technique in any quality, I should use a good quality paper, especially after seeing how that last ocean scene came out. It's not like, the paper is going to make me a miraculous artist. It's just going to give me the best shot at doing a good job with what I've got, right? So this is everywhere else in the world but America uses a different standard of measurement called the metric system. Look it up. It's amazing. But the imperial measurement system is kind of weird. The metric system for paper, they have a different naming convention for their paper sizes. In America, we have 8.5 by 11 is letter size paper, like you would normally write out or print out a letter when you're going to mail something in an envelope. Then there's legal paper that's, I think, 11 by 14, which is a little bit taller, wider, if you want to call it that way. It's great for legal documentation, which is what it was designed for, or you can turn it in horizontal or landscape view, and it's great for printing spreadsheets on really wide tables of spreadsheets. In everywhere else in the world, they name their paper in different ways. This one in particular is A3. There's like A4, A3, A2, A1, and a bunch of other kinds that I don't know. This one's A3, but the English measurement is next to it. It's 11.69, nice, by 16.53. So it's bigger than the 10 by 14. That was the next step up from my 9 by 12s. This was the largest in a pad that they had that was semi-affordable. The 9 by 12 was $20, $21, I think. This one was $30. So a good bit larger, 50% more expensive, but it's going to give me the capacity to be able to tape in a few different sections and get a lot of working space to be able to practice what we're going to do today. And I'm sure a lot of the future experimentation we're going to do. It should fit. I didn't think about this actually. It is just bigger. I didn't plan this. It's just bigger than my clipboard. So I'm not going to be able to tape it to it without cutting it smaller than this. It's perfect width-wise. It's exactly the width of my clipboard, but it's taller than it by about an inch, a little bit less than an inch. So I'm probably going to have to get funky with it. I'm probably going to have to flip this backwards and put tape all around the border of this and turn my pad into a block, basically. That's probably what I'm going to have to do to be able to paint on this easily. Yeah, thinking it through, I don't have anything bigger than this that can support this unless they break out that giant, if you remember, that giant wooden cutting board. And it makes it too big to do literally anything next to me. So yeah, That or I cut this in pieces and then I can play with it in a smaller form factor. So that's probably what we'll do. But we need to learn uh, how to do any of this. So I think same as we did last week, I'll pull up some of the videos and we can take a look at them together. I already pre-watched some in the last hour and change just to kind of get a gauge on what would be a good one. Looks like we got 15 minutes until an ad starts. So we'll go ahead and we'll start this. I think the one that I liked the most, weirdly, is this gentleman, The Art of Paul Apps. The videos from 4 years ago, showing how to make clouds. And then there's another few people here, but their videos are far longer that I don't think we'll watch today because they're just huge. I think we can start with the one. It's big. We may have to skim through it a little bit. It's 28 minutes long, and I don't feel like taking up the whole day just watching other people. Part of it, but not all of it, right? So let me go ahead and pull it up, get it going full screen, turn the music off completely, and let me get this gentleman started and get it on the screen where you can see it. I'll expand on it. It's in the corner right now, but I think we can go ahead and just grab it and make this a bit bigger. If I can get my hands on it. Round one, touchscreen, this one. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video. We'll skim through, as I said, but let's get started. I'm going to actually skip ahead of his whole intro because he, like everybody else, does the whole, subscribe to my channel and blah, 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 blah. We'll hear more about him as we watch. All right. Oh.
GSM, and it's a rough surface. It's really a lovely pad, and I've gridded it out to give you 6 small cameos of the idea of puffy white clouds. So let's go on and let's start with the first one. All I'm using predominantly is cobalt blue, but an awful lot of phthalocyanine blue. It's a lovely blue and makes a great deep sky color at the top. So I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to put in the start basically, and we're just going to come down and suggest our first cloud. That's all I'm doing for that. And now I'm going to come in with some neutral tint in another pan. I'm going to wet up the area, but there we are. We've got the base of the cloud. Okay, what I'm going to do now is use a damp brush and just tease the edges around this. Now it will get dry very quickly because I'm in my studio and it's not very cool. It's really warm. So forgive me for that, but I'm just feathering out some of these lovely colors, not to lose all the white, but to give me a really delicious cloud form. A little bit more neutral tint coming in. And so far I've used 3 colors. I've used 2 blues in the sky, and I've used a wonderful neutral tint in the base of the cloud here, and we've got a bit of weight in that. Now if I want, I can mix a bit of the blue and a bit of the neutral tint together just to give a slightly cooler variant to the base of the cloud, like that. And all the way it is just bleeding and softening. Now here it's still quite hard, so I'm going to tease the area together, and also that little bit of blue, let that come down. And we don't want to lose all our white, so I'm being a little bit careful, very careful as I come down. But there's a lovely fusion of color. Let's lose that bit, and we'll let that set out. I'm going to let this dry up, and I'm going to start the second one. Very, very similar. I'm just coming in with a different action, and this one will be virtually the same sort of idea, but a different cloud. So I'm just going to come down with a great big cloud at the top and let that sky come all the way down. But I'm going to try and do things a lot wetter this time. and allow that to come through and mingle a lot more than this one will have done. Let's take that up like so. Let's just soften this off. Soften around the edges, just a damp brush around the edges, and let that will sort of find its own way. The paint will start to move and it will find its own way around. A beautiful big, I witnessed this the other day on the beach, and something very close to this, and it was as much as I could, almost stretching back as it's towering way above me in the sky, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And I photographed it so many different ways, and I felt that that's what prompted this little video, is to just because I went out there and I saw something not unlike this, and it was just great to record and great to see. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to keep this coming down, and a bit more weight in there as we did with the one before. But while this is still wet, I'm going to put some, let's put some sea on this one. So a little bit of cobalt blue and a little bit of ultramarine blue. Just going to come across here with a bit of sea. Big scratchy mark. Just push that through and allow that to be something like that. I think that works quite nicely. Sorry about the rustling paper. I've got tissue paper ready at hand, and I just want to put a variant in the sea color like so. Let that come all the way down, and the two areas will start to blend and merge. And now I just put a quick dash of color through to be my sand in the foreground, maybe a little bit of Indian red into that, and very, very quickly done. All we've got is a nice horizon line with a lovely cloud on the top of it. I am just going to tease this little area in here before it totally dries up. And this is another good reason why you should be thinking of heavier weight papers. Heavier weight papers give yourself a little bit more working time. They stay damper longer, and therefore they can allow you a bit more working time. But there we are, a nice little cloud, a nice little base to it, and a bit of sand. Very, very suggestive.
I'm going to skip ahead here because he goes back to that
I'm
first
gonna
one.
Tap in a very faint pinkish, bluish value underneath the cloud that will come down to the top of the sea. Now I'm going to come back in with some more neutral tint very, very quickly, I hope, before everything dries up. And let's just put in another value in here and allow some of that to bleed into that sky and create possibly a little bit of rain substance. Now this is going to cause me a mark, so I'm just going to tease that out. Wash the brush, not too much, I don't want any pigment on it, but it could cause me a problem. So I'm dry brushing over the area very, very quickly, teasing that out, and hopefully with a couple of taps of a tissue, which should be dry, that will stop any bleed happening in this paper to the other colors already in place. And hopefully we've got that, and now we've got a sense of rain coming under there, which I'm going to add to now. While it's still damp, I'm just going to put in a sense that there is rainfall underneath this cloud coming down and into the water. And let's just add some watery colors with the blue and the neutral tint. We're still pretty much working on the one or two colors. We're not actually doing too much in terms of adding to that. A little bit of orange, just very suggestive of a bit of landfall and sand, but we have a sense of the rain coming down. So we have three clouds very, very different to each other. That's gone back up in there, maybe a bit.
Okay, we'll come back to that. I don't want to watch through the whole thing at once because we're going to get lost. I think we're going to try to do these first two. So let's move it up here so you got some room to work. Let me back it up just slightly so we can see just those two. There we go. And we can at least use them as a somewhat of a guide. I think his paper was kind of cheaper, so you could tell as soon as it got like too wet and he went over it too many times, it started pilling, I think we call it. Like especially this one on the left, you really see where it started pilling up. So hopefully ours won't do that so much. Let's go ahead and figure out how we're going to get it on the board here and tape it down. I may just go for a smaller piece of arches instead of using this giant one. I'll probably just go with my traditional 9x12. Let me get up and go get that really quick. I'll be right back. Oop. All right, I'm back. Go ahead and get a piece of this off. That is one piece. It is. See, this tears off the pad so much nicer. All right, put that over there. Let's go ahead and get some tape. All right, I've got a thicker 1-inch tape for the border, and then we'll line the middle and a couple spots with this narrower, I think it's 1/2 inch. Yeah, 1/2 inch tape. So line this up the best we can. He does 6 different kinds. And I know, right? Surely, the people doing the tutorials always make it incredibly easy. And I get it. It is easy once you've done it for a very long time and are very well practiced at it. And it's fine because, I mean, again, because we're just starting, it doesn't have to be perfect. I feel like it needs to be perfect or more perfect, but that's just my insecurity trying to wreak havoc on myself. I'm trying to get better about that. Thank you to my other half, and thank you to Goddess for trying to help rein me in when I start getting pissy about how I don't like how something's coming out. I will try to be better about that. Just say, even if it's not perfect like a professional of 20 or 30 years does, it's great for me. I just have to remember that I am still, and very much will be for a long time, be still a student. I am learning how to do this, and I should not expect perfection every time out. Everything I do is a success because it's better than what I did before. Once I've become more proficient and I somehow backslide in some way because I'm doing silly mistakes, then it's on me to start calling myself out, but I shouldn't be doing it before I even get started. Well, dang it, I put that a little bit too low. But it doesn't matter because this is practice, but I just want to try to get the border at least somewhat close to half the tape width. I think we're just going to go with it. That'll be fine. Tape down. How are you doing today, Goddess? It's Monday, so hopefully it's not quite such a crazy start to a week for any of us. It was a day like any other day. Let's go ahead and put this here. Okay. That is down. Let me really crimp it down, especially in the corners where I forget to do that sometimes. All right. And let's think it through. So he does horizontal and he does 3, 3. So we can do that. Turn it sideways. Maybe go too much. I'll have to zoom in, but I don't do that too much. Maybe bring it down a little bit and zoom just a tiny bit. Yep. So once we get started, we'll see it a little better. Yep. I need to raise it back up. There we go. That'll work. All right. So we're gonna go across the middle and then do 2 down. So let's get, where's the edge of this? There it is. Go across the width. Okay. And we're just gonna eyeball. We're mostly in the middle. Great. Start in the middle and I'll just press it down outward. Yep, great. Down nice and firm. And let me get a couple of verticals. If I were guesstimating, that's half. That's about third, I think. I'm not gonna press down all the way because I can move it after. Let's go ahead and do another one. All right. So here-ish. Yep. Maybe like so. Yeah, that's pretty close. All right. Get this one down. Get this one down. Right. And then this one. Okay, same deal. Up and down. All right. We got ourselves 6 little, I can't call them a quadrant. Sextant? No. I don't know. Sexy. I don't know what 6 is. I think that was right, but who knows? 6 sections. All right. So I think to practice with the first one, I didn't catch what color he used. Probably like cerulean, I guess, on top. We'll see. Maybe we get a sketch piece out. Just for color testing. Doesn't have to be perfect for just swiping some color on it. All right. And now, let's get ourselves a round brush of a decent variety. This one will probably be fine. Just size 12. Might be a little big for this. What's the next size down that I've got? I go from a 12 to a 6. I probably need to get a size between these two because it is a huge difference. Yeah, I'll probably need to at some point find one in the middle, an 8 or a 10, just so that I've got something in between there. But this is fine for now. I think thinking it through, I could probably get away with using the larger one and just relying on using the tip of it when needed. Because if I use the small one, I'm going to have a lot of inconsistency between brush strokes. So I think I'm going to use the larger one, but I'll keep this at the ready in case I need it. So let's take a look at what colors we're going to use. So he uses, looks like 2 different shades of blue, probably like cerulean and Prussian blue. I think the cerulean is more the kind of top of the sky for him. And Prussian, it looks like he did a lot more darker Prussian blue color on the bottom part. So let's look at what both of those look like. And then we'll grab some gray. We got Payne's gray. It's kind of basic, so I can probably use that. Excuse me. Let me stop yammering for 2 seconds and have some coffee. Whenever I run out of speaking capability, I need to lube up with some coffee. Ah. Oh no. What is this? Okay. Let me see what was said here. Is it causing problems? It is causing just a sign out every time it does a 5-minute refresh. Can't wait. Sorry, just responding to a work thing really quick. Okay. Colors. Let's take a look. So on my palette, this one right here in the bottommost corner is my Prussian blue. You can pull it up and look at it without even using the scratch paper. We can at least look and see what it's going to look like. Yep. So here's a Prussian blue. So we can see that looks a bit more like what's on the lower half of his video over here. And then for the upper part, what do we have that's close to that? It's kind of cerulean. On the screen I'm looking at it on full screen, it looks actually kind of ultramarine in color. So maybe we'll use ultramarine and Prussian. I like that because they're next to each other on my palette. Ultramarine, looks like the French ultramarine has a lighter mid-tone color. If I go with the ultramarine deep, it feels like it gets really dark. So maybe I'll do French ultramarine and Prussian blue. Prussian blue is, again, this one on my palette, and the French ultramarine is 2 over from it right here. So we use that one and that one. Let's see how they look over here. All right. Oh, no, I didn't even wet my palette. I'm supposed to wet my palette. Spray it down a little bit more so in the blues because I'm going to be using a lot of that, and in the Payne's Gray as well. All right. Let's take a look at what the Prussian blue looks like. Okay, that's it, really dark. Let's thin it out a little. All right. And let's grab some of the French ultramarines from right here. All right. It's our French ultramarine. And let's wet that down. Thin it out. Okay. And we already know what it looks like, but we're just going to do it anyway. Let's hit some of the Payne's Gray. All right. Clean my brush out, and we'll grab the dryer and dry this off. Excuse me. And that's mostly dry. Trend that back down. Pretty colors? Yeah, I think so too. Let's grab a pen and write in what these are so we can see them, and then I'll put them up here so we can refer to it. I'll grab you. So this one on the left is Prussian blue. And that was our Prussian blue. This one is French ultramarine. And this one's our Payne's gray. All right. And we got my brush over here out of the way. We'll move this up here so we can refer to it as we go. You can see that. Yep, let me move this down a tiny bit and bring this down a little. There we go. So you can see it kind of as it fades from really dark upward. All right. So I think we'll do the French ultramarine for the upper part of the sky area. Reserve some white. And then I think he skipped the Prussian blue at first. I think he may have added it for the water at the bottom. But what he really did is he went with the Payne's gray and probably hit it afterward a tiny bit with a little bit of Prussian blue perhaps, just to darken it. And then let's get some paper towel and have some ready to wad up so we can blot. All right. Paper towel, just kind of crush it a little bit and just pat it to the side, ready to go. All right. I think we're ready to practice. So he did, I think he did on dry. I don't think he wet it down first. Let's go back and look. Turn this down. Right.
6 small cameos of the idea of puffy white clouds. So let's go on and let's start with the first one. All I'm using predominantly is cobalt blue, but an awful lot of phthalocyanin blue. It's a lovely blue and makes a great deep sky color at the top. So I'm just going to come in.
Okay, so he blended. So let's go ahead and do a combination then. Let's do because I don't have cobalt blue, but the closest thing I have is the ultramarines. So I'll go ahead and mix over on the well over here on the far right, some of my French ultramarine with a little bit of Prussian blue in it. And let's see how that goes. All right. Let's just kind of hit this in the middle here. Be like, that's a combination of those two. Yeah. All right. So he goes in raw dogging, so he doesn't do wet on wet. So let's just try to do a similar idea. Let's let this go.
And I'm just going to put in the start basically, and we're just going to come down and suggest our first cloud. That's all I'm doing for that. And now I'm going to come in with some neutral tint in another pan. I'm going to wet up the area, but there we are. We've got the base of the cloud. Okay, what I'm going to do now is use a damp brush and just tease the...
Okay, so he goes in with the mixture across the top. So we can kind of do a combination of what he does, really however we want. Okay. And then he goes in with some Payne's Gray right on the bottom of that. So let's do that. Okay. And he just kind of hits it on the side and just kind of goes for it. So let's just do the same thing. All right. And let's get that done. And I think maybe we will switch to the smaller brush for the finer details. Let's do that. He goes in with a damp brush and he softens all of this, but he leaves some hard edges. So I think maybe we'll just do pieces where it feels like it needs to be blended together a little bit more. Okay, let's get to this. Mhm. Okay. Okay. And let's get the dark bit. I might have made the dark bit a little bit too thick. We'll be fine. We'll see how it goes. And feels like it dried like the moment it hit the paper. Let me just put a little bit of water along the edge of it and let it sit there for a second while I scrub.
the edges around this. Now it will get dry very quickly because I'm in my studio and it's not very cool. It's really warm. So forgive me for that, but I am just feathering out some of these lovely colors, not to lose all the white, but to give me a really delicious cloud form. A little bit more neutral tint coming in.
Delicious.
And so far I've used 3 colors. I've used 2 blues in the sky, and I've used a wonderful neutral tint in the base of the cloud here. And we've got a bit of weight in that. Now if I want, I can mix a bit of the blue and a bit of the neutral tint together, just to give a slightly cooler variant to the base of the cloud, like that. And all the way it is just bleeding and softening. Now here it's still quite hard, so I'm going to tease the area together, and also that little bit of blue, let that come down. And we don't want to lose all our white, so I'm being a little bit careful, very careful as I come down. But there's a lovely fusion of color. Let's lose that bit.
She just
We'll let that
she
set
blended
out.
the
I'm
hell
gonna
out of
let this
it.
dry up, and I'm going to start the second one. Very, very similar. I'm just coming in with a different action, and this one will be virtually the same sort of idea, but a different cloud. So I'm just going to come down with a great big cloud at the top, and let that sky come all the way down. But I'm going to try and do things a lot wetter this time, and allow that to come through and mingle a lot more than this one would have
Okay.
done.
So
Let's keep that
I
up.
overdid it by a lot.
Like so. Let's just soften.
But you know what? The beauty of this is I don't have to do exactly what he did in doing an individual cloud formation in every single one. I can stop, regroup, and try the same one again and again and again until I'm happy with it. And then I can just make a new set of 6. So let's look at that. So our combination of French ultramarine and Prussian blue, let's get that going up here again. Oh, I forgot I was with a bigger brush then, but that's okay. Okay. Well, that's a little bit darker than I wanted. See how it goes. Feels like I'm doing too much. Let's pull some of it back if I can. Yep. All right. And then he hits it below. Am I winging it now? Maybe a little. Do I care? No, not really. Okay. Come. It's a thing. We can keep trying. All right. At this point, I've gone off the rails and I'm just playing, but that's half the fun. So I'm just kind of going for it. All right, we're steadily improving. Let's go for a different one. And what we're doing over here, no idea. Probably just writing that off. Off the rails. Oh yeah, I'm just playing at this point. Not even always successfully, but just kind of screwing around. I went way off the rails. What was I thinking? Got a hair in there somehow. Get out of there. Okay, probably go on to one of his other clouds here and see if we can improve upon anything. Like most situations, maybe even like last week, we're probably going to be like, oh, well, it wasn't incredibly great on Monday, but Thursday we redeemed ourselves. I'm not setting myself up for failure by saying that. Wow, that really just messed up down here. Let's see if we can recover any of that. Okay. Not great. Oh yeah, we just basically made it black right there. Whoa. Okay, let's look at another.
Turn this off. That it is going to be put in another value in here and on the one. You can even carefully tap back in and lift it off with a cloth, and we get a fusion of area that you can't, the brain can see the difference, but it makes up what it can't tell. So you've got this beautiful fusion between the puffy white clouds, and often when you see a cloud, yes, it can be hard edged, but often you see little areas of bleed off into the sky, as it were. And also it can, there is a little trick involved with allowing the soft white edges to bleed off into, and it almost creates an intense degree of light around that cloud. I don't quite know how to explain it, but if you look often, you'll see this sort of thing. Now I let this go off a little bit too long, so I'm just going to come in there, wet this up a little bit, let it come in and join in one or two places like so, and we get a lovely cloud form. We can make that run into there, and I want to drop in a little bit more depth, so I'm going to come in with some more violet from that point and a little bit of neutral tint. That's probably a little bit too much. Let's come back with some more violet in there. I think that'll work. Bit more water, and let's just run that in through here like so. We can let that build up or not, as the case may be. Depends how you want it to see, how you want it to be. Tapped a little bit more blue into that. That's quite nice. Very, very quick cloud studies. And if you wanted to do a lot of little learning curves, then this is a great way of doing it. If you've got lots of little scraps of paper, I sat in my gallery with my students yesterday, and this is what gave me partly the idea to do this. That as I was teaching them, as I was talking to them, they were watching me as I just held up little bits of paper in my hand, not sort of this sort of size, and I just literally did little skies, and I will show you at the end of the video exactly what I was doing. And you know, if you've got scraps of paper, it's exactly what you can do. You can just take a little piece, get it set up. You don't have to have large easels or anything of this nature. Just hold it in your hand if you have to, and to that end you can get some wonderful little studies going, and it will help you no end in the future. All this builds confidence, and that's truly what you need to be doing, is building the confidence to play with the colors, play with the paints, and allow them to sort of suggest things to you as you move forward. Now I'm going to put in let's see, let's put some yellow and green into that. Let's put a distant set of hills in here, maybe just a little bit of ground, not necessarily hills, but just a little bit of ground. Even this flush down through here looks like it's dropping rain, which is quite exciting. I quite like that. A little bit of warmth into the bottom because we're predominantly blue and cool, so a little bit of orange in the bottom of our ground, and there we are. We have a piece of ground, piece of farmland, piece of something, but we've got this wonderful cloud above it. So let's come in with some cerulean blue only this time, and let's put that in. Now I'm going to try and create something that's a little bit different, like so. We can play around with these, but I've left them very deliberately, as we can then come back in and create forms within the little marks that I've left. And let's make a much paler value coming down, like so, almost to nothing. We can change some of that value to a pinkish red with some vermilion, so let's just come back in there and tap some of this lovely color in. I didn't want to go across to the other paper, but there we are, and we're just suggesting a different color temperature in our sky. Could be late in the day, could be almost anything. We're going to let that one dry off, but before we do that, we're going to come in and play around with some of these edges here. Build some, lose some. Just soften what we see. We can leave them hard, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not suggesting that you've got to do this every time. I'm trying to show you throughout the whole of this series that you can play around with the effects and create different forms by leaving some hard edges and then softening other edges. They will create the illusion of nice cloud forms. And there we are. Just play around with that one. We can actually tease those two together a little bit more.
At Fred Meyer, you never compromise. You get
Ads.
up quality that's guaranteed fresh and down low prices on over 1,000 items.
Go away, ads.
And we leave some of them hard, some of them soft. Just play around and fuse some.
Once
and
again,
leave some. I'm
YouTube
gonna come in
ads.
with some neutral tint. It's a good base color generally. Don't have to use it, but it does come out and work as a very good base color to a cloud. Just soften the effect of that off, like so, and across into that one, and maybe just a snatch or two into this, like that, and maybe a little bit there and in there. Now let's just come in and play around with that, soften the effect. It's going to bleed with all the blue paint. It's not a big problem, just as long as you've got a little bit of control over it, but you do get the idea, I hope. Just playing around with some of these marks. Lose some of that, that's a little bit too much. Just take some of that away. And maybe a little bit out of there too. But we've got a sort of, not puffy white clouds, but a cloud form nonetheless. Taking this a bit heavy on top. So I'm just going to lose some of that. Take some out there. Each time I'm washing the pigment out of my brush, but I'm also drying off the excess water into this. Just run it through my fingers and play it out like that. Just soften that mark. Soften one or two of these way down here. We want them nice light, but we don't want them so obvious. There we go. We're going to leave that one to the end, and we'll just come back in and finish that. Now for our final one. And to that I will put in, let's make another puffy white cloud, but this time we are going to make it very similar to this, but we're going to use two blues. We're going to use the Phthalocyanine blue and the Cobalt blue together, and I'm going to come in with a really intense dark blue, which is representative of how deep that blue can look above your head. And let's bring that down with some lovely sense of white cloud by scratching almost a dry brush across, and let that come down. Now that, I'll take the excess off, take that out of it, don't want that. Gotta be careful I don't flick paint everywhere else as well. That's the problem with working in small. But you see how intense that blue is. It will dry lighter, but it really does or can look that intense. Okay, now I'm going to put in some neutral tint one more time, a little bit more subtle with it this time. So I'm just going to come in, and I want to build a lovely form of shadows within the big cloud itself. So I'm just taking it up to within a gnat whisker of the blues. I don't want to let that blue come cascading into my other forms. So there's a very, very subtle shift in pigment, and it is just a very, very soft there. Hopefully that will be enough, and we can put in a bit more weight, perhaps a bit of blue, a bit more neutral tint, a bit more blue into that, and take off the excess and just come into the base of this cloud. Don't want too much color, just want to suggest below the puffy shapes and forms. You know how these sort of get really dense down the bottom, and you're not sure if they're just going to be rain clouds developing or just transitory and moving through your scene on their journey to dropping rain somewhere else. But yeah, I think this is just a nice way of doing it. We're building up a lovely sense, softening off, dragging the paintbrush across like so, but it is all very, very quick. I don't know how long this video has been running, but you've seen that I've created 6 little paintings in a matter of minutes in sort of real terms. Hopefully you've gained something from these that you can then take on into your own paintings. So I think that looks nice there. I'm going to drop underneath with a little bit, just a little tap of vermilion. It may pick some up, and if it does, I'll turn it into a rain cloud. And just want to tap in the bottom of the sky, just underneath. I could have waited for this to totally dry up under this bottom of this cloud, but I feel that this is quite a nice way to do it. And if there is a slight bit of, in fact I'm almost encouraging it to drop in and fuse down and bleed into the sky at the bottom. It can always be a mistake. It's a decision you make, but it's not a big problem. If it goes wrong, it just goes a little bit wrong, because you can always add more and make it a definite rain cloud.
If
So
it goes
now
wrong,
I
it goes a
will just
little
finish
wrong.
with maybe a suggestion of a nice sort of hill. It's going to bleed back in that way. I can lessen the effect by taking that off there and reducing the amount of water to stop it bleeding back, and then just drop in some orangey reds into the green, a little bit of green, a little bit of phthalo green, a bit more. There you go. And we can just run in a nice bit of field into the foreground. Job done.
Job done.
Okay, there we are. Okay, we finished everything else off. Let's just pop back in very quickly with a little bit of violet and a little bit of green, and just put in, I did say, or I keep saying little hills, so let's just put in something that does resemble.
Okay, let's see what else we got going on here. This guy does a whole painting, or at least just the cloud
Giving
portion.
myself an idea. If I don't have any plan for these clouds, they all just kind of look alike and fall apart. But I want to have a main cloud here, and then the rest of them can kind of be more random. And what I want to do first is wet down the front and the back of my paper like I normally do. I'm going to get the whole back of my paper evenly wet. Now I'm going to evenly wet the front of the paper. It's a warm day, here, so it's kind of warm in my house. I'm gonna try to get this pretty wet because I'm gonna have some time to work on this sky. Okay, large mop brush. What we're gonna paint first is the light areas of the sky. I like to put a little bit of warmth in the clouds, so I'm gonna get some raw sienna, a little bit of rose madder permanent, and a touch of ultramarine blue. So that looks good to me. A little bit of warm gray there. Now this is the color of the clouds, and you can just place these loosely. I always talk about this when painting skies. I'm not going to be able to paint exactly how it is here in my reference photo. It's just not going to work. There's so many complexities, just so much detail. I'm trying to create an impression of these clouds, just getting the feel for the clouds, not trying to copy them literally. Okay, now I'm going to add some lavender into my mix. Let's use some lavender and a little bit of raw sienna, a little bit of rose madder permanent. And this is just a little darker, a little more value than what I just had. And what we're doing now is creating some nice wet into wet differences.
Okay.
Subtle little differences. Soft little changes in value. And we're just doing this layer by layer. Remember, as we get near the horizon line, there's more clouds. So we want more little marks, more little differences. So we've really just established the lights of our clouds, the light values. A little stronger again. This time I'm using a little bit of neutral tint, lavender. Now this is more for the underside of the cloud.
So what were his colors?
Into
Let's start over.
I'm gonna try to get this pretty wet because I want to have some time to work on this sky. Okay, large mop brush. What we're gonna paint first is the light areas of the sky. I like to put a little bit of warmth in the clouds, so I'm gonna get some raw sienna, a little bit of rose madder permanent, and a touch of ultramarine blue. So that looks good.
Okay, let's pause there for a moment. Let's wet this back down again. Let's see. Okay. So he's got a mop brush, but I'm going to start with the round brush just to get the colors mixed. So he said raw sienna, which I don't have on this palette, but I've got dragon's blood. He used what? Dragon's blood or burnt sienna and then like ultramarine. Oh, I see, because it gives a really nice kind of gray color. Whoops. Whoops, I splashed out of it. Worse. Get back here. And he just goes really lightly with it. Lurk, all good.
Good to me. A little bit
See how
of
I go.
warm gray there. Now this is the color of the clouds. And you can just place these loosely. I always talk about this when painting skies. I'm not going to be able to paint exactly how it is here in my reference photo. It's just not going to work. There's so many complexities, just so much detail. I'm trying to create an impression of these clouds, just getting the feel for the clouds, not trying to copy them literally. Okay, now I'm going to add some lavender into my mix. Let's use some lavender and a little bit of raw sienna, a little bit of rose madder permanent. And this is just a little darker, a little more value than what I just had. And what we're doing now is creating some nice wet into wet differences. Subtle little differences.
Lavender, huh? Okay. We can add a touch of our violet into that. And some of the blue. And a tiny bit of the dragon's blood again. Let's get a little blue. And our violet. Fill this guy up and just adding a little more.
Soft little changes in value, and we're just doing this layer by layer. Remember, as we get near the horizon line, there's more clouds, so we want more little marks, more little differences. So we've really just established the lights of our clouds, the light values. A little stronger again. This time I'm using a little bit of neutral tint, lavender. Now this is more for the underside of the cloud. Use the side of your brush, the tip of your brush, turn your brush to create some variety. Okay, a little more strength. I'm gonna put a little bit of cerulean into this, cool it off just a little bit. Now we're gonna get into the blue of the sky, the rich strength of that blue. So I want a rich mixture of cerulean, ultramarine blue. Let's do a little bit of lavender as well. And let's get to some of this blue and define our main cloud here. It's pretty damp still, so some of that's gonna bleed into this cloud, and that's okay. We're just gonna work with this the best that we can, and you go with it. All right, getting that rich blue in really makes a difference. I'm gonna minimize this part of the cloud. And this is gonna be our main focus. Then as we get in here, we want to use a little more cerulean. I'm going to wash a little bit of that off my brush and use a little more water and a little more cerulean.
Right.
Okay, a little more water. Same thing, lighten up a little bit. And we're going to think about the bottom of the sky here. Trying to keep my marks random, not paint too much of a pattern. And then we get all the way to the horizon line. Just bring that blue all the way down. One thing I want to do is just put a couple more darks. The undersides of these clouds need a little more strength. Lavender, maybe some cerulean, some neutral tint. Taking some of the moisture off my brush. I don't want to go in with a super wet mixture.
What do you write?
The romantic poems.
Well, what if we read
That's
a poem right
again.
now and use Grammarly's AI writing tool to help us out?
Go away, YouTube ads.
You don't want to overdo it. You have to proceed with caution for sure. Things are starting to dry up on the paper, so that means I need to be done soon. I think that's looking pretty good. A few little marks to break up areas that seem repetitive or boring. Okay, I'm gonna take a step back. I think that's pretty good. Have you ever been really excited about a painting and you get all set up, you find that right
What am I-
reference that you're excited about?
I don't need all this extra garbage. Stop that. Okay. Let's just call the video tutorial portion done. And let's just take a look at what we're doing. All right. So I'm a little all over the place, but it's looking kind of cute. I'm not going to lie. Probably going to need to come back into it and lighten it in some areas. But the colors that are here are really pretty. So I think I'm going to kind of blot this out a little bit. And then maybe get some of our green that's on here already. And and just get a little bit down here on the bottom. And let's get rid of this mop brush. And go for a round brush. And maybe we get a tiny bit of our dragon's blood. And then a tiny bit my brain has gone stupid. I know what that's called. Yellow ochre. That's it. And knock most of that off and get a little bit more. And there's something in here. Okay. Right. And I'm loving how most of these clouds actually ended up coming out completely by accident. Can we bring back some of this? I love the feathering look, but not so much above the gray. I don't want to mess that one up. That one looks really pretty. And then maybe just a little bit up here. Okay. And maybe we'll add just a tiny bit more. Nice and wet. Just add the tiniest bit. Okay. It's very pale, but I kind of like it. Let's grab a paper towel. Mhm. Okay. 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 I say we let that sit. No, I'll dry it off. Woof. Certainly like that better than this. There's bits of this that I like. I like this one. I like this one. This one was okay, but I kind of messed it up. This one disappeared. This one is a bit too funky. Yeah, I really like these two. I liked this one before I messed it up. Yeah, this one's cute. It's kind of pillowy. I might need to fix some parts. I really wet this down. This is something wet. Yeah. We can try to see if we can scrub some of that. Oh yeah, that's actually quite wet. And this area definitely needed some love. Realized some of the dark bits, I think I went a tiny bit too dark. Are they all clouds? Yeah. Open to interpretation. Colors are really nice. I'm very happy with that. And to make sure I really clean these brushes out now, because I don't want to leave a bunch of crud in them. Definitely want to revisit this idea, doing the full page, multiple colors and tones like that. It's really pretty. Try to define the clouds a little more. I think I might have left some gaps in there a little bit too much. And that was still wet. This was starting to get dry. I didn't see that. So here we'll just kind of scrub some random stuff on the bottom here where it's only a pale green color just to give it something. I'm tired. It's been almost 2 hours. It was a long day before this, too. That goes there. That goes behind it. And this needs to dry off a little more. Okay. And that'll finish drying on us. All right. Let's go ahead and try what we've got. And then call it for the day, I think. All right, let's peel this sucker and come up with some conclusions for the day. If I can get underneath this enough to peel it, I may have to go from this side. Yep. Even this side. This one is on top. Let's grab this one next. There is. And the last. Yeah, so, I mean, in one sitting, in a 2-hour sitting, I think we've improved considerably. Practicing here. Again, I like how these top two came out more. Clearly, I need to work on it, but I like how those came out the most. And on this one, I need to work on. Oh, it's still really wet. Yeah, it's still really wet. I'm gonna dry it off some more when I'm done here because it's really floopy. But yeah, I need to work on the technique and the placement of some of these a little bit more. But the colors on this, I don't know how well it comes through on camera. In person, that's more of a pinkish hue. I realize it's not quite coming through as well on the camera, but the colors on this are actually really nice. It is really hard to see on camera, but yeah, it's really pretty. I'll have to dry it some more. It's very wet still. Hit it. But what have I learned? Well, I've gleaned the techniques from two people. I know to look for more. I know to practice some more. I definitely need to work on, I kind of feel like I'm overdoing the gray tones on the bottom side of clouds. I need to practice on doing clouds that have no gray or very little gray, because I realize every one of these is like a storm cloud. What does that say about my psyche? So yeah, I need to practice doing it without gray or much less gray, because I way overdid the gray in almost every one of these, except for maybe this one in the top right here. But yeah, I more than anything, I love the color spectrum in this one. There's pinks in here, and there's some browns. There's a variety of like blues and like violets in here. I don't care quite so much for the ground portion, so I may just do all sky next time. But having upper parts of clouds be a pinkish color is really cool. It reminds me of some like early sunsets before the sky starts getting dark, but the tops of the clouds starting to get just a hint of the pink from the sun. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So yeah, I think I'll call it there for the night. We'll come back on Thursday. We'll probably do, I think I want to do the same like 6-image color study or cloud study, but with this idea, with these colors, and just kind of fine tune it, and then maybe try this one again and try to have better control over how many clouds, where they're placed, so they're not like stacked on top of each other like this one, and do a better job at doing big clouds on top and maybe shrink them in, like squash them in height the further down I go, so they feel like they're smaller and further away. So that's something to learn from this as well. I think I'll try to do that. And we'll do that next time in practice mode, and then we'll try it full size. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop there and find something to eat. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Goddess, I know you're lurking, but if you're out there, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Kind of tired, so I'm not going to even bother trying to find someone to raid today. I'm just going to kind of head out. So again, my name is Bear. I've been Barely Watercoloring, and thank you again so much for hanging out with me. I'll see you later. Thanks, Goddess. Good night.